Got a copy ability you'd like to see on the next copy ability spotlight? Stay tuned until the end of the video to find out how you can help decide the next one. You all know what jump rope is, right? Two people swing around a rope and someone in the middle tries to jump over it. It's a fun pastime, and it's the foundation for one of my favorite minigames in Mario Party 2. Jumping in itself is part of the core foundation of platformers, and platformers are some of the best games ever made. But what does any of this have to do with Kirby, you may ask? High jump! Not one of the abilities that comes to mind as a classic for many. But for anybody who's played Kirby's Adventure or Nightmare in Dreamland, surely remembers the fight against Kracko, even if it's possible to win without using high jump. But hey, who knows, maybe high jump was better off being useful than it was being popular. On today's copy ability spotlight, we'll be going over high jump throughout all the games, and seeing how it was used at the highest level of Kirby. Let's get started! Looking at the game it was introduced in, it should be pretty obvious that high jump isn't the most complex of abilities. It does one thing and one thing only. It makes you jump high. Very high. Very, very high. Look how high he goes! What's important to note here is the speed in which Kirby jumps. He jumps fast, and even when he's moving left and right, he moves around very, very quickly. That sounds all well and good, but these are just the basics that are over. Now we get to the fun part. Kirby's Adventure, as discussed in the Beam copy ability spotlight, takes no prisoners when it comes to useful abilities. There's a very small pool of abilities that are useful in the any percent no major glitches category. Where does high jump fall into this? Wouldn't you know it, it's actually used in the run! And of course you really only use it for the Kracko fight. Which, I mean, come on, this should go without saying, it's the Kracko fight. It was literally designed with high jump in mind. Trivializing the Kracko Jr. segment and even fighting Kracko to some extent more than makes up for any of the time that you don't have Tornado for. It's even used a little bit in 5-1, but that's kind of it. But after that, it kind of fades into obscurity. But hey, most abilities in Kirby's Adventure outright get no attention at all, so this is definitely better than nothing, right? If anything, I think it should appreciate the spotlight. No? Alright. Oh, and the boss rush for this game doesn't really have a community. But you fight Kracko and you need high jump for that, so, yeah, that's something. Oh, really? Kirby's Dream Course? How am I gonna talk about this? Only a small handful of abilities got into Dream Course, but hey, what do you know? High jump's one of the abilities that got in. Speedrunning Kirby's Dream Course is actually of very minimal importance. Finding the fastest way to clear a hole isn't really all that important. What is important is getting the lowest score possible. This is a golf game, after all. The clips here kind of speak for themselves for what high jump can do beyond a basic jump feature. For getting holes in ones, though, high jump is a totally different beast. Of course, using it to jump high is part of its functionality. And for vertical elevation, the best in the game. Really your only option in the game. Its practical use extends far beyond that, though. Since if you land on these green... What are these things? Landing on these green borders gives you a crazy amount of momentum. And without any kind of slanted terrain, the only ability that will get you airborne so that you can land on them and get this crazy boost is high jump. This allows for some really crazy and some fancy looking hole-in-ones. And similar to the other abilities in this game, generally speaking, makes high jump invaluable for getting them. Course 1, for the most part, is almost exclusively done with high jump. Sure, part of that is because it's the only ability you really get for the most part, but also it's done because high jump is kinda necessary, and you do have to think outside the box for some of these, so I'm gonna give it a pass on this one. The most difficult course to get all hole-in-ones for, at least the ones that are actually possible, is kind of agreed to be normal course 8. And I mean, high jump is used there, so cool. I always liked how the last hole incorporated most of the copy abilities into it, in a way that's kind of easy to understand how you need to get the hole-in-one, but it's actually tricky to, get the hole-in-one. This game has a lot of cool stuff like that. I didn't think I'd be talking about Kirby's Dream Course so early on in the copy ability spotlight, but I'm glad I am. You should play Kirby's Dream Course, great game. Now this one really caught me off guard. In Kirby's Adventure's any % no major glitches run, high jump was barely ever used. Really only used for Krakow. The reason why it was never really used was because it, and let's be honest, most of the abilities in the game, were just kind of completely outclassed by Tornado in every regard. It did everything that you needed an ability to do to clear the game fast. But here, not only is high jump used way more in Nightmare and Dreamland, but it's used a lot. There are points where, in a properly routed run, mind you, the runner should ditch Wheel, the fastest ability in the entire game horizontally, for high jump. Is it really just because Tornado got nerfed? Yeah, that's basically it. With Tornado not having a chokehold over most of the run, Wheel took its place in most of the areas. But Kirby's Adventure, God, wrong game, Nightmare and Dreamland, isn't a game with only flat ground to traverse. There are plenty of vertical platforming segments in this game, along some other things that aren't specifically related to high jump. Other abilities, but not high jump, and therefore not important for the video. And unlike with Tornado in Kirby's Adventure, having Wheel for certain segments in Nightmare and Dreamland is just not worth it. And that is where high jump comes in. Of course, high jump is still used for Krakow, I mean, come on, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when I say it's used for a lot more, I mean it's used for a lot more. In fact, it's used for the entirety of Butter Building. The whole thing, including the boss fight with Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. Speaking of boss fights, high jump's damage output in this game it's actually really good. It's similar to how it was in Kirby's Adventure, but because the enemies and bosses in this game are generally larger, and so is Kirby to a slightly lesser extent, bosses are a lot easier to hit, and high jump itself just generally has a better hitbox. Was I expecting this? No, not at all. But is this cool? Heck yeah, it is! Unfortunately, there's not a lot of info to go off of for Squeak Squad. For the boss rush, high jump presumably does similar things to what it was doing in previous games, only with the bosses in this game working the way they do. It's presumably good against certain bosses, mostly the ones that are in the air, not so good against the ones that stay grounded. As for clearing the game quickly, Squeak Squad has Wheel on steroids, so you're really not going to see any use of high jump at all in the any % run. But hey, in the world record, the speedrunner used the bubble mix thing, you know, that feature that Squeak Squad totally had, and they got high jump. What do you know? And at the first practical moment, they use it to mix for something else. Hey, it's about the little victories, okay? So remember how in the Spear video, I was talking about how it was the worst copy ability in Triple Deluxe? Well, here we are again. High jump for boss rushes is the worst ability in Return to Dreamland. The only difference being that in Spear's case, it wasn't the worst copy ability for every single boss fight. In Return to Dreamland, high jump is the worst ability for every single boss fight. Wow. Yikes. What's kind of sad is that high jump is just kind of doing the same thing that it's always been doing. Nothing's really changed. The only difference is that now high jump has a charge move that it can use that still makes you high jump, and there's a downwards version, which is high jump, but you go down. So really, nothing major has changed about high jump, but the way that optimization has worked in Kirby games has changed. High jump just didn't really adapt. This is a very weird sentence to be saying about a Kirby game, but the unfortunate truth of the matter is that high jump got power crept by better abilities. But normally, high jump isn't really used for bosses anyway, right? Really just Krakow and, in Nightmare and Dreamland's case, Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. Not that many. It should be more useful in any %, right? Return to Dreamland. Wait, not wait. Oh. Woo! Return to Dreamland is Wing's game, and it doesn't share with any other ability. Any kind of vertical distance high jump can achieve is just done exceptionally better by Wing. And horizontally, forget it. High jump's DPS, or damage per second, clearly isn't very good either, as we saw in the boss rush modes. So, generally speaking, in this game, high jump just doesn't serve a purpose. Really, the only positive I can muster up here is that high jump is used in 100%, but come on, it's 100%. What ability isn't used in 100%? Alright, well, I will be fair here. I'm not just talking about the challenge room. I'm not gonna be that rude to high jump here. I like this ability too, you know. It's just really not very good. Can we wrap this up, please? Overall, high jump was a bit inconsistent. It's had its ups and downs, and sure, its downs were much lower than its highs, never really reaching true best ability stardom, but when high jump was good, it was very good. It really managed to surprise me when doing the research for this. I mean, it's an ability that's fast, travels far, and in the games that it's good in, does solid damage, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised, but that's why I'm here to tell you about the copy abilities that aren't so popular. Unfortunately, even though it was very strong at the start, over time it kind of fell off. Good as it was in most of the games it's been in, the last game it was in was Return to Dreamland, and the way it was in that game was, bummer. Want to see a different ability in the next copy ability spotlight? Want one that has more games? Or maybe less games? Or maybe the exact same amount of games by some wacky circumstance? Leave a comment below telling me which copy ability you'd like to see in the next spotlight. It doesn't have to be under the pinned comment this time. I'll pretty much just take any comment that I see. But as a way to say thanks for the people that did put them under the pinned comment last time, let's just say you have an idea on what the next copy ability spotlight's going to be. With that, I've been Kirby Fan. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.